So if you take a look here, and this is kind of just some cool technical analysis, if you take this move down right here, right? So from this high down, which was a straight shot, then you had this kind of consolidation pattern. And then if you take this high down here, the measured move, meaning this distance to this distance, that's the exact distance from here to where the bottom should be put in. In addition, Bitcoin during its winters, its past bear markets, corrects 80 to 85%. If you correct that in this period, you get 12,000-ish, give or take, as well. So there's a lot of confluence of levels at around 12,000 where my next target is.
Hello and welcome to Wealthy Value. In today's video, the president of the MoneyStocks.com, Gareth Soloway, updates about the recent fluctuations in Bitcoin's price, why we are currently in a crypto ice age, and where Bitcoin is headed next. He also explains the chances of a short-term bounce back in Bitcoin's price before sliding into a big recession, along with his time frame for Bitcoin to take off. Make sure to stick around till the end of this video, where Gareth Soloway explains why Bitcoin will combat inflation and why he has set a $12,000 price target for Bitcoin's bottom. By the way, for today's video is sponsored by Margex. We heard some really great things about this exchange. Their tech looks really impressive. It allows you to trade with 100x leverage, it has price manipulation protection, it can conduct up to 100,000 trades per second. So we decided to test it. Here you can see the dashboard. We were really impressed with the interface, it's very user-friendly. As you can see, here you can place a trade. You can do up to 100x leverage if you're comfortable with the risk. Here's the wallet tab where you can deposit your crypto. As you can see, you can make a deposit using any of these cryptos, and you can also pay with Visa. Another thing we really like is the live chat support, where you can talk with a real person. There's a great documentation section and some very explicative video tutorials to help you get started with the platform. Overall, we think it's a great exchange if you're comfortable with the risk of trading with leverage. You can also get a $50 bonus if you join through the link in the description, as well as an additional $50 after depositing 0.004 BTC. If you want to try it out, click the link in the description. And now, back to our video.
So, I mean, we are holding the 19.5 2017 high. So if we look at the chart here, we can see that if we zoom all the way back to 2017, we briefly pierced it, which is very normal because there's a lot of stops that are put there by investors. There's this kind of mentality that people were buying just above 20,000. So for it to flush below, psychologically, a lot of them will jump out and get scared, and then price usually recovers. So I could see us bouncing back to 25.5 or so, maybe even 28. But I want to caveat that with saying that this is still a bear market. This is still an ice age, like you referred to it as. The charts are still pointing to overall further downside. You're right about a lot of the issues that are occurring. The Celsius news, the Terra Luna collapse, all of those are very much like the dot-com bubble bursting in 2000. And I think that's what crypto is going through right now. And if there's one thing I remember from that period, it was the very, very start of my career, is that it didn't end with just a few blow-ups, right? You have to see more. You have to get more downside there. You have to get to a point where investors are ready to totally throw their hands up in despair. And while a lot of investors are still, they're hurting, the average investor, I think, is in from $50,000, $60,000. They're not fully ready to give up just yet. If you take this move down right here, right? So from this high down, which was a straight shot, then you had this kind of consolidation pattern. And then if you take this high down here, the measured move, meaning this distance to this distance, that's the exact distance from here to where the bottom should be put in. Markets are very much like that. I mean, we saw that over here where you kind of went up, you start, and this is the key, right? So when we were below 20,000, you saw so much bear market kind of sentiment. And the markets tend to wait and kind of lure people back in. So even in this mid area here, when we were back to these highs of 47, 48,000, I was hearing, oh, we're going right back to all-time highs. This is the big breakout. This is all that stuff. And the markets still need to kind of do that here, in my opinion, in which case they have to move up. You have to start getting that sentiment, that hope back. And the markets are evil like that, and not literally evil, but they like to get people to start to believe again. and then they crush their dreams.
Oh,
And that's just the way markets work. So this is where it gets even more intriguing with how kind of a pro trader or pro investor handles it. So as much as I am a believer that there's a decent chance of going to 12,000, maybe even lower, right? I don't know for sure. There's also a chance it doesn't get there. So what I have done here is I basically selected and I said to myself, how much money am I willing to invest in Bitcoin in this bear market when it gets down to this area or below? I took that amount, let's just say $1 million,
right.
right? And I divide it into six categories, six even amounts. And when we were at 19,000, I took my first 1/6 and I bought Bitcoin there. And what I'm going to do is every $2,500 to $3,000 down, I'm going to buy another 1/6 position, eventually accumulating a full 6/6 position, right? And so the idea is
Yep.
I've been around the block enough where I understand that sometimes downside targets don't fully get achieved and sometimes they overshoot. So I don't try to pick the exact bottom. Once we get near, I just start slowly dollar cost averaging in, knowing that my long-term view on Bitcoin is still extremely, extremely bullish. 65K will be a low target for when this thing takes off. So time frame wise, I'm looking at, so in past cycles, and all we do as technical traders is look at past cycles. That's all we have to go by. It usually takes about 12 months for Bitcoin to bottom out. So that means that puts us kind of later this year, November-ish, for when a bottom could be in. And then there's usually a 6-month period of just ups and downs, kind of making people, bulls think they're going to win, then they get smoked, and then bears think it's going to go lower, and then they're wrong as well. So that choppy 6-month period. So what I would say is by late 2023, so unfortunately, you still have at least another year of this probably, mid to late 2023, I think that's when the next move up can take place. And I also coincide that with my macro view that by that period, inflation will have come down to 4 or 5%, but the economy will be really suffering. And it's likely the Fed will then turn on the spigots again and start stimulating to try to get unemployment, which at that point has probably spiked to 7 to 10%. They'll start to get that down by printing money and stimulating. So watch for the Fed to start to do that. I think that's going to be a key for when you finally see Bitcoin bottom and start to turn around. I think it absolutely will be. It just has to mature, right? So I always love saying, and I think this really sinks into people, is when you say, okay, Bitcoin is a 13-year-old, right? So it started in 2009. Here we are in 2022. It's the equivalent of a 13-year-old. I mean, for those of us that have kids, my kids are younger, but I've certainly known many 13-year-olds. I was one at one point, believe it or not. We weren't exactly rational. We were very emotional. We had these wild emotional swings up and down. And that's what Bitcoin's doing right now. It's kind of a very young asset. People are still trying to trust it, which makes it very volatile. Versus gold, which has been around for thousands of years, and a big day on gold is like 2%, right? I mean, like, holy cow, gold moved 2% versus Bitcoin like 20%. In general, in a bear market, we want to stay away from the smaller, more speculative coins. I learned this the hard way in the stock market with small caps, where in bear markets it's harder to raise capital for coins that are still in that kind of establishing themselves phase. That's going to be very hard for them to attract capital in this type of environment. So you have to be careful with those. In general, I like to stick with kind of the top 20 coins because those are the biggest market caps. Those are the safest. Granted, Terra Luna taught us it wasn't necessarily all safe though. So you still have to be diversified. I will tell you this, is that as I accumulate my longer term hold position, like I picked up a little Bitcoin, I am looking to do that to Ethereum as well if it gets down to, let's say, 825, 800. I'm really just focusing on Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? So my portfolio is a separate portfolio that I'm putting aside. It's more like a diversification insurance policy, and I'm really sticking with these two, mostly Bitcoin with kind of a smaller percentage in Ethereum. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't know how the other coins are going to do. How's Solana going to do? How's Ripple going to do? How are these other ones? I honestly don't know, and that makes me unsure about putting kind of my long-term money
Yeah.
at risk at this point. So you can see here on Ethereum, we've had an amazing collapse. We basically kissed this 850, 825 level. That was my level to kind of start buying my longer term position, very small at first. We never quite got there, so I just didn't get filled. But now we've rallied into minor resistance. And again, ultimately, I probably think that Ethereum still has more downside to go, even if it does continue up here in the short term. So for me at least, focus on best of breed. If you're someone like me that doesn't like losing money, then you need to go with the safest blue chip type cryptocurrency.
So, what are your thoughts about Garrett's perspective on potential Bitcoin bottom and short-term price recovery? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.